So I latched on to something Danae said yesterday. I believe it was yesterday. It's all getting blurred in my head now. But she said something about her kids trying to figure out how to use a cassette tape. And it's like, I mean, I could see them trying to, wind it with their fingers to play the next song or something, or plug headphones into it. But it got me thinking about the book. And one of my responsibilities as host was to actually read a book, which seems a little crazy, but I went ahead and did it anyway. The Upstarts, and it was a book about the rise of Airbnb and Uber, and the story is absolutely phenomenal, and I want to thank TAR and the Austin Board of Realtors for stepping up to buy each of you a copy of that book that you got in your bag, which is awesome. It also came with these, rockin' socks, make the market work. But here to talk a little bit about that book and about those experiences. He had firsthand knowledge of it with the city of Austin. Actually, I think a lot of people end up calling this guy Mr. Austin. He was the right-hand mayor, or right-hand person for both of our last two mayors, Matthew Curtis. Matt, welcome to the stage.
Thanks so much.
And kill it.
Thank you. I realize I have friends from the Austin Board of Realtors and Texas Association of Realtors in the room, so thank you so much. I love you guys dearly. We have to tell each other that here in Texas. It's very important. Folks, who here knows about Airbnb? Anybody? And how about Uber? Anybody? It's really funny, and you guys are lucky that you guys got a copy of this book. It's very inspirational, and Brad Stone does a great job giving you a roadmap of how you can innovate yourself and how you could become an upstart yourself. So my name is Matt Curtis, and we were just talking about the fact that I worked for these last two mayors, and then for the last 6 years I ran HomeAway Expedia's Global Government Affairs program. So I dealt with the short-term rental issue around the world with cities and all the city regulatory stuff. And in the very early years, that meant I was actually dealing with a little tiny company that we didn't think was going anywhere called Airbnb. And later I was dealing with a company that we were trying to partner with that really wanted to be something, and they thought, oh, you know what we'll do? We'll help people get into black town cars when they're not being used, and that company was called Uber. And we thought, oh, this is nifty. We'll partner with them, see where they go. Well, what do you know? They have obviously gone somewhere. I'm an upstart kind of myself. I used to weigh 500 pounds. So I'm 265 pounds today. So for those of you who are doing the math on did he lose any weight, I've lost a little bit of weight. And when I was a heavier guy, I didn't travel. And I really wanted to create a role for myself where I got to travel and see the world. So I created this job with HomeAway where I thought, boy, what a better place in the world to work than some place that was in the vacation industry. And I had somebody else pay for me to fly around the world and work on an issue that I loved, working with cities that I love. And so I innovated, and I really became an upstart myself. Well, Airbnb and Uber did something very similar. And when you guys read this book, you've got a copy of it in your gift bag, you'll see that roadmap. Airbnb started as air bed and breakfast, literally air bed and breakfast. It was just a rubber inflated mat on the floor. It was at the DNC convention for President Obama in Denver in 2009. And they were starting to say, hey, people are going to need some extra inventory instead of the typical hotel space to stay. And maybe we can find a few people to create a few extra spaces. Uber said, hey, you know what? It's funny. There's all this black town car, kind of fancy car that you can ring up and have take you to the airport. Some of that inventory is not always being used. Maybe we can help create or innovate kind of a new path for those guys to find a little extra time. Well, what Airbnb did soon after was say, hey, wait a second, we're on to something. Maybe we can take this concept of just beds and inflated mattresses on the floors of people's houses. What if people were renting out their back bedroom or their couch? What if they were renting out their entire primary home when they were not using it? And so started Airbnb. And it was only roughly about 2011 when I would say they started to catapult into super success. Airbnb went from overnight from about 200,000 listings around the world to about 500,000 listings in 2013. In between 2011 and 2013, there was a time there that people in my company and other people in the industry, they were talking about buying this little company. They found them maybe kind of annoying, but the activity was never really going to attract itself to people. People weren't really going to attract be attracted to staying in other people's houses. Well, what Brad tells us in the upstarts is by innovating and by creating experiences for those travelers, by those people who were acting as hosts for the travelers, by making them feel very welcome in neighborhoods that might not always be the touristic center of a community. They might not be in the central business district, near the convention center, something like that. The people were actually having a real good time. And if they only just tried it just once, they would have such a good time, they would do it again and again and again. How many people know how many listings Airbnb has today? Anybody? Over 3 million. Over 3 million just since 2013. I don't even keep track anymore. I think they're valued at something like $50 billion. It's completely insane. And one day they're going to continue to innovate and they're going to continue to adapt. And one of the things that we read about in this book is how they start to push themselves into other aspects of the travel and experience industries. They're going to start becoming the feature that you use when you want to go to a city. So I was introduced and they said I was Mr. Austin. I love this town. I'm from this town, grew up here, been fighting for making this city a better place my whole life. But imagine if you were coming here and you didn't know Mr. Austin to call and say, hey, what's the best barbecue joint to go to? Smitty's in Lockhart, by the way. What's the best barbecue joint to go to? Where's the best place to go get fried chicken? Fried chicken's a thing now, by the way. You know, or where's the, and of course everybody's going to call the fat guy about where to eat. But, you know, there's great things when you want to go to a community. I found myself when I went to go visit Nashville. Anybody from Nashville? Nashville, what a spectacular, beautiful town. You guys have a beautiful city. So I went to go visit Nashville, going there for work, speaking at conferences, that sort of thing. And I found myself begging people about where to go and what to do. Well, what Airbnb is innovating itself and turning itself into is the entire online experience package. You can book rooms, you can book car rentals, you can book things to do, you can book travel experiences. Uber's doing the same thing. And one of the things that Brad tells us in the book is Uber's continuing to innovate and adapt. They're starting to become an entire travel package. But you know, they've also faced some significant regulatory challenges, and they're starting to see other companies that are innovating and adapting and coming up behind them. I think one of the things that the Texas Association of Realtors and Austin Board of Realtors wanted you guys to be able to gain from this book is how can you innovate and adapt and do things for yourself? How can you see that this industry that you might be in or projects that you might be working on may be stagnating? All Airbnb said was, are people getting sick of going and staying in small little hotel rooms that have that tiny little coffee maker in it? Are people sick of that weird chair in the corner and that desk thing that you don't always really use, but they're there? There's no real experience or love downstairs, you know, in the lobby of the hotels that you might be staying at when you're traveling for work or for fun. They created an experience where there wasn't one. And they took on an industry that had stagnated. Now Uber, wow, talk about stagnating. I love my friends in the taxi industry. Love them. Worked very closely with them. I was a last holdout for a taxi industry guy. But can anybody argue that the taxi industry hadn't completely stagnated? Taxis had gotten greasy and old. They were clunky. I took one from DC out to Dulles Airport once and it couldn't go over 40 miles an hour because the front end was all messed up. They were clunky, they were junky, and it wasn't fun. I was a last holdout for the taxi industry before I got into Uber. And then I got into Uber and I was in a Chrysler 300 that had an iPad cord coming to the back, 2 little waters and a couple mints. It was wonderful. So I think what we wanted to talk to you about here today and what we wanted to challenge you with is the concept of innovating yourselves. The concept of looking at what you're doing in your work, what you're doing in your business, in your town, and say, is there something more we can be doing? Can we innovate? All we learn in this book, all we learn from Brad Stone, is how to innovate and how to persevere and how to adapt. These guys just stuck with it. I used to weigh 500 pounds, created this job for myself, turned my life around, created a job where I got to be flown around the world and work on this issue and really not only continue to just be Mr. Austin, but start to see the rest of the world. I saw corners of the world I'd never thought I would see again. Now I've created my own little consultancy where I help cities around the country and hopefully one day around the world deal with these issues. How do they regulate short-term rentals? How do they get that tax base from short-term rentals if that's what they want, or be able to restrict them however it works for their community? And I've done that again. Maybe I'm an upstart, and you guys can be an upstart too. You can innovate, you can adapt, you can persevere. Be an upstart. You can learn all about it in this book. We hope that you take a good read. We hope that you guys had fun here today, and I really hope you enjoyed your time in Austin. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy your stay.